Sunday in the books. The San Francisco 49ers on a bye did not play, but leapfrogged over the Seattle Seahawks sitting at home. The West all lose except for those 49ers, and some really important games coming up post-bye on the schedule for San Francisco as well. All that and more coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. See y'all jumping in the chat for our late night after dark sesh here, Croc. Late Sunday here, and shout out to all the early morning drivers to work as well that listen to us every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The first place San Francisco 49ers ain't no thing. Just kind of hang out and score 6 fewer points on the bye week than the rest of the NFC West combined, Croc. We had some ugly losses for the teams in the West this week, including the Seattle Seahawks, who fell to the Baltimore Ravens in blowout style. What was the final? 37-3 was the final. So now the Seahawks and 49ers technically tied with 5-3 records, but the tiebreaker right now would go to the San Francisco 49ers. But Croc, some of those things are going to work themselves out with 2 out of 3 upcoming against the Seahawks, with the Philadelphia Eagles in between coming up in a few weeks after the bye. So some very important things upcoming. But what did you see this Sunday from the rest of the NFL, NFC West specifically, as the 49ers sat at home resting up during a Week 9 bye?
I think Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith, they continue to kind of struggle on the road. So we definitely saw that. Arizona, they had a quarterback starting that I'm not sure I've ever heard of. So I think they're waiting for Kyler Murray to be healthy, be able to play. They traded Dobbs away at the deadline, and then you see Dobbs pull out a miracle come from behind victory for the Vikings just a few days after showing up. So it feels like the NFC West is a little weaker, but the Seahawks, they're not going to go away. Definitely a rough loss to a really good Baltimore team. 49ers we'll have to see in a few weeks. But Seahawks, they're going to be tough, especially when you have to go up there and play them.
Yeah, speaking of Baltimore, they're coming up just a few weeks after those 2 Seahawks matchups too. So it's a pretty important stretch of games, and the 49ers have already had a pretty difficult stretch just before the bye as well. So some really important ones. More on that in a little bit. I want to talk some more about some of these games. The Seattle Seahawks are a weird team. Obviously, they got beat up on the road at the Ravens. Ravens now 7-2. The Seahawks 5-3, 37-3, the final score there. I think the 49ers handled the Seahawks last year. You don't want to overlook anybody. You don't want to overlook the Seahawks, but there's nothing about the Seahawks that really, like, they're a good team. They're a young team. They're a competitive team, but they're not a team, even for their record and being a playoff team, you'd think, oh no, it's the Seahawks. You never get that vibe with this Seahawks versus some of the, maybe it's just because I'm comparing them to the past Seahawks teams. They don't feel like that boogeyman team anymore.
No, definitely don't. I talked about how 49ers, back in the day, we're, right now 49ers going through a rough stretch defensively. And I remember like 2012, or it might have been 2013, early in that season, I think the Seahawks beat the 49ers like 42-10 or something crazy like that, led by Kaepernick, like that whole team there. I don't think this is that same Seattle Seahawks team. So I don't think you have to worry about that going up there. But they can kind of turn it on. I feel like they're kind of out of sync. And you watch the game, and just the lack of targets to DK Metcalf, I feel like he's kind of fallen all the way off for some reason. I don't think it's lack of ability, but maybe he's just not a focal point in the offense. They're trying to run the ball with Kenneth Walker, and they're kind of forcing that. But when you can't get stops, and then the offense is struggling as well, and there's no rhythm, you get a beat down like what we saw today.
Absolutely. The Rams mustered 3 points against the The Packers, just some bad quarterback play in the rest of the West too. So for those fans they're hating on some interceptions thrown by Brock Purdy, should thank your lucky stars the 49ers have Brock Purdy and not some of the Clayton Tunes of the world playing quarterback for him. 23, the Rams lose to the Packers. I don't think the Rams were going to be a factor anyway, even without even with a healthy Matthew Stafford all year. A little upset was Aaron Donald on the sideline too. After that one, he was just he's not having. He doesn't like the L's that are starting to mount now. 2 straight years for the Los Angeles Rams, and the Packers aren't that great of a football team this year, and they whooped them pretty good. And then the Browns blanked the Cardinals 27-0. So that's the check-in with the NFC West during the bye. The Niners are in pretty good shape there. 1-8 Cardinals that now again, if the season ended today, would have the first pick in the NFL draft, even ahead of those Carolina Panthers who are 1-7 because they've had a bye and the Cardinals haven't. Both 1-wins teams.
A couple talented quarterbacks that should be up there around pick 1 overall. You got Caleb Williams and you got Drake May. And I think Arizona's kind of gunning for another top 10 pick using it on the quarterback after Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen, and now whoever they pick this time.
The Rams are at 6 right now, I think. And they're going to have some more losses. Like, you don't want like May and Williams in the division, right? And that's a possibility. I still think the Cardinals will end up sticking with Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray has to be healthy and, improve to the new regime in town that he is the guy this year. And probably, I thought he was going to play this week, but I guess next week we'll see Kyler Murray there with the Cardinals, and maybe that'll help them get a couple wins. And then we won't have to have the conversation about Caleb Williams if they don't have that first overall pick. But there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft too. So it could be, Penix, it could be Drake May, it could be a number of dudes. So the 49ers might have one of those new quarterbacks in the West to compete against.
As long as they don't look like CJ Stroud, because he's balling right now.
How D'Amico's like probably calling up Kyle and like, hey, Kyle, dude, it's not that hard to find a franchise quarterback. What were you doing over there for all these years? All you do is you just draft the guy at the top of the draft and you're good. You know what's funny is the Texans kind of hedged. They kind of did both, right? They did okay, well, we're going to go D-line and we're going to build around our defensive line. So we got to take Will Anderson. It's like, but then we're also going to trade up. So we got this extra pick and we're going to take the quarterback too. And I know they traded up to 3 for Will Anderson, but CJ Stroud is the real deal. I mean, 5 touchdown passes, 470 passing yards. Love seeing that in Bobby Slowick's offense and in that scheme. And D'Amico Ryans and the Texans, surprising a lot of people, they're 500 right now, 4-4, Croc.
I have a question for you. How many points did the Houston Texans give up?
They gave up 37 points.
They gave up 37 points. So you're telling me it's possible to win when your defense gives up 37 points, not 22, like the 49ers gave up against the Minnesota Vikings, and everybody's calling for the defense coordinator's head, but 37 points led by D'Amico Ryans. A D'Amico Ryans-led defense gave up 37 points. And somehow, some way, an offense was just like, it's okay. You gave up 37. We'll score more. We'll score more than the 37 you gave up, and we'll bring this thing home. Sometimes you got to help the defense out a little bit. It's a little more difficult for other teams, I guess.
No, that's true. That's true. Maybe Kyle needs to call up Bobby and steal some elements back for his offense. CJ Stroud, though, is the real deal, and it's rare to see. Speaking of quarterbacks and
Brock Purdy, kind of real deal, or like another level of a real deal.
A different level of real deal, I think. But I mean, to look, because it's rare that the player looks exactly like he did in college. Usually it's like, oh man, it's not that easy, because he's always been like that really calm, collected guy, super accurate. I didn't know how dynamic he was, and it was like, I like him, but number 2 overall, number 1 overall, I just wasn't sure about those 2 quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Like, are they really just slam dunk number 1, number 2 guys you're going to trade up for? One of them's 5'9", and the other one's like, yeah, I like it. It's accurate, but what else is there? And then you see him play. It's like, he might as well be at Ohio State. He's dropping bombs, super accurate. And he's throwing to Noah Brown and Nico Collins and making them look like Pro Bowlers. It's been phenomenal what I've seen from him. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Clear-cut offensive rookie of the year.
Speaking of the Texans game, though, Croc, how about this? Tying it in with the 49ers. Talking about OWs and running backs. How about this? How many points did they win by? 2? 39-37. You know who accounted for 3 of their points? A running back kicking field goals. 1 for 1. Dare Ogunbowale. He
Was he a soccer player?
No, their kicker got hurt. Oh, I don't know what his background is. But he kicked it fine. It was a short field goal. He had to kick some kickoffs too because their kicker got hurt. He went in there 1 for 1 and he kicked a field goal and they won by less than 3 points. So, I mean, if Kyle Shanahan didn't already have a kicker that he drafted in the 3rd round, he might be scouting for a guy that could play a little fullback, a little running back, a little receiver, a little wide back, and maybe a little kicker on top of it.
49ers like their Swiss Army knives.
Yeah, they do. All jokes aside, some very important games coming up, Croc. I want to talk a little bit more about some teams in the rest of the NFL as well. So a couple of more AFC teams and that team that the 49ers are looking up at the seeding in the NFC for those playoff seedings that they're going to see a little bit later in the year, and of course a really tough schedule of games coming up. And Steve Wilks, should he be in the booth? Should he be in the sideline? Does it matter? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And why would you go to LinkedIn Jobs? Well, everyone's already on LinkedIn Jobs, right? I'm on LinkedIn Jobs. You're on LinkedIn Jobs. That's where the people looking for jobs are, and they might even find out that they like your job better than the job they already have and want to apply for your job. Because all you do is you add your job to your purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn business's profile, and you spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on just the right candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and eventually hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the Ravens have kind of entered the chat from a team that has been good for years and years, and you knew would be competitive this year, to a team that's like, okay, they're playing exceptional football right now. And it's them and the Chiefs in the AFC, and watching Sunday Night Football, watching the Bengals against the 49ers last week, watching, how much better they played the last few weeks versus how their season started. I think the Bengals are still right there too. And I might even still have the Bengals over the Ravens if I was making the power rankings right now. And then the NFC, the Niners are still now like kind of the 2, right? But the NFC is not a powerhouse conference right now. It's the Eagles 1, and then the Niners probably 2. And
why would you have the Ravens below the Bengals?
If they were playing in a neutral field today, I would take the Bengals. I think they're just a better, more complete team, as well as the Ravens are playing. The Bengals are playing awesome football right now too. You can't look at
they're more complete.
They can throw it, they can run it, they can play defense. And I love their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo's a dude. And I like them up front better.
I like Baltimore more.
Really?
Yeah.
They're
hitting with the receiver. You see, finally they're starting to figure out how to utilize Odell Beckham, and obviously, like, he's not like OBJ, but he's still out there doing his thing. Their run game is just so lethal. Then they balance it out with the defense, who's really good. I mean, they are really destroying teams. They might have, and I can look at it here, the highest point differential in the entire NFL. And I'm going to look at it right now. Let's see. Yep, Baltimore Ravens, #1 in point differential. So, like, they're destroying teams.
Kill Me This says, since he has no run game, Peacock. I don't know if you watched the Cincinnati Bengals run on the 49ers, but they had success.
They have ran better the last few weeks. They have.
They're a different team. That's why I'm saying you got to throw out their record. Their 3 losses they had earlier in the year. It's just like that wasn't the same team that we're seeing right now. And a healthy Burrow, I'm going to bet on him. Like he's a dude. And I love Lamar too, but maybe I'm a little mad at Lamar because they put up 37 points and he got me Jack in my fantasy league. Come on, Lamar. You got don't hand it to Gus. Take it in yourself a couple times, man. Come on. Do
yeah, he's my fantasy quarterback as well. I'm in one league. Now, Baltimore and the Bengals, they have played. Baltimore won that game, but it was early in the season. So we'll see. We'll keep monitoring that AFC North, especially since the 49ers have to play Baltimore Ravens soon.
It's kind of more the same as last year, though, Croc, is kind of what I'm getting at. So who were the last 4 teams in the tournament last year? It was
49ers, Chiefs.
Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, and Bengals, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same 4 teams plus Baltimore, right? Same teams.
Yeah.
Looking ahead.
You don't think there's going to be like a sneaky team, like maybe like Detroit?
I think there could be, but then every time you think there's a sneaky team, then I was like, "Oh, what was that?" You know, like the Seahawks or the Lions had one last week, or the Cowboys, or the Bills.
Who the Lions have that weird loss to
right now?
What team was that?
That
beat the
was
Lions?
Monday night, right? Not this week, but last week's Monday night, wasn't it? Let me double check on that.
I think they got beat in the daytime by a team that goes by the name of the Baltimore Ravens, and the score was 38-6.
Yeah, the Ravens are thumping people right now. The Ravens are thumping.
Yeah, I was just saying.
It's true.
You kind of disrespected them a little bit. Killing me. This says Dolphins disrespect. That gotta mention them.
Yeah. The Dolphins. I mean,
They're kind of weird though. I don't know.
The Dolphins are super weird, and they haven't beat a good team yet. They haven't beat a remotely good team yet. In fact, they've only beaten awful teams, right? So yeah, it's wild out there. And AFC is going to be tougher to get through the tournament, which is why I think all roads are going to go through Philadelphia because they've already got a head start now on everybody in the NFC, and they're not even playing their best ball, but they're still just walking away from teams in the second half, which is pretty impressive on their part, including the Dallas Cowboys this week. The Cowboys made it close. It didn't feel close at all. It ended up being a 1-score game. Yeah, the Eagles 49ers looking ahead. This is the season right now, Croc. So Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, Niners have to prove it though. You got Jacksonville coming up, and Jacksonville they are winning. They're coming off a bye, just like the 49ers, but they're winning games. What are they, 5-2 right now, or 6-2? So
where'd they go? I don't know. My stuff's not loading anymore. But they are.
I got it. 6-2. So we're talking about a 6-2 team. They have a terrific quarterback. They're running the ball very well and throwing the ball to Travis Etienne. All their pass catchers are really like hitting their stride, especially Evan Ingram as the tight end. Like he's been awesome. That is a game that I think before the season is like, oh, that's a win. 49ers, you go to Jacksonville, 10 a.m. game. It's not going to matter. You're just going to beat them. And now it's like I view it definitely a lot different than I have in the past. Like Doug Peterson, he's a really good coach. And I think the way he has this team playing right now, like they play good football. So this is going to be a tough one, especially for a team that's on a 3-game skid. Like you can't lose this game. But you're facing an opponent that just traditionally, or at least over the last 10 years, like they just haven't been good outside that one outlier year with Blake Bortles took them to the AFC Championship game. But you just in your head is like, oh, it's a win. And then it's like, oh, actually, they're kind of good right now. And their defense is playing really good. Like on the road, 10 a.m. game, like this is going to be really tough for the Niners.
And especially their run defense. And we've seen what's happened a couple games when teams did a really good job against the 49ers run game and turned them into a one-dimensional squad. So, yeah, going on the road, you can't let Jacksonville get a lead early. They're a good football team. And so Jacksonville Jaguars week 10, Croc. Then the 49ers come back home, play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is a winnable football game. No game is easy in the NFL. They got to play good football still. Then just the season. This is the season. Week 12, 13, 14. You go at Seahawks. Short week. Is that Thursday night? No, that's a Sunday nighter. Excuse me. Sunday nighter at Seattle Seahawks. Then at the Philadelphia Eagles the following Sunday. And then back home against the Seahawks.
Thursday night. They play on Thanksgiving, Seahawks.
Oh, that's why it's NBC. Okay, I saw NBC and I was like, I thought it was Thursday, but it's NBC. That must be Sunday. No, you're right. Yeah, 11:23. So it is Thanksgiving Thursday against the Seahawks. Then a mini bye at the Philadelphia Eagles, back home against the Seahawks. So Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks. That is such an important stretch for the 49ers. Then you go to Arizona, and then you get the Ravens after that too. So it doesn't end there, but those 3 games are so important. And then you got the Jags and the Ravens in that 6-7 game stretch. So still a lot of work to do for the San Francisco 49ers, and they got to get this right coming out of the bye.
Yeah. Well, I think that, one thing that we've seen from the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, I think they do a terrific job of just preparing. Like with that time off, they come back. I think they're going to be refreshed, ready to go. Good game plan. Get Deebo Samuel back. That'd be huge. And, start to get to clicking again. Now, the health of Trent Williams, that's going to be a tricky one. Obviously, the offensive line hasn't been great. I think he has a legit high ankle sprain. You don't typically see guys just, I sprained my ankle, so I'm going to miss 2 games. Like that, that typically doesn't happen. So I think this ankle injury was definitely significantly worse than what they've led us to believe. And I'm not even sure, to what extent he'll be, available this Sunday. But you need him against Jacksonville. That's going to be huge.
That Deebo Trent combo has been really important. I think it's easier, obviously, to navigate losing one of those guys. And it has been pointed out to us a few times that last year the 49ers scored 30 points a game in games where they didn't have Deebo. I think it's a combination of Deebo and Trent Williams and how many big runs the 49ers get off that left side of the offensive line, not having Trent there. It affects the passing game as well. Pass rush getting there a little bit quicker. But you don't have the quick run after catch guy for the quick game and the passing game in Deebo anymore either at the same time. So I think those two things together matter, even though they've shown in the past they can navigate losing one of those guys at a time. The combos obviously hurt them. Pharrell says, when you guys do some Q&A, hit us with the Qs, dude. We can't A it if you don't Q it. Right, Croc?
Yeah, well, we can do that in the third segment.
Yeah, we'll do that up in the next segment. I want to talk about Steve Wilks. I want to talk Booth sideline. I want to know what you think about that, Croc, if it's important to have a coach that can talk to you on the sideline or get in your face maybe if it's something that is needed there. And and we'll do the Q&A as well. Whatever you guys want to talk about 49ers style, hit us in the chat next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It's time to score with FanDuel. And our listeners and new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet, and as long as you win a money line bet. So again, that is new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $500 if your team wins on that first $5 bet for new customers at FanDuel that you can use to bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, 49ers to win the Super Bowl odds. A little bit better odds now after 3 losses than it was, but they're still top 3 team right now in betting odds to win the Super Bowl, ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, by the way, Croc. The mine was maybe that'll change tomorrow. We'll see what the lines look like in the morning. But yeah, bet on anything 49ers related, NFL related, NBA related, NHL, motorsports, combat sports. You can find it at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get that going and kick it off in style at FanDuel. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. All right. What do you think about Steve Wilks, Croc? One of the things that worries me about the 49ers going into the bye is hearing Kyle Shanahan speak about it. Me and you talk about it. There's things that we're like, okay, they got to do this better. They got to do this better. Are they missing this player? Are they missing this player? What's happening here? Why is this happening? I feel like there's not a lot of answers. And I'm not surprised that the lay people out there don't have the answers. I'm not surprised that you and I don't have all the answers, Croc, for what ailed the 49ers the last 3 weeks. But I don't like seeing Kyle Shanahan be like, I don't know, maybe we'll put him on the sideline instead of the booth. Is that, I don't know, and as you've noticed, as you mentioned there, CJ Stroud, guess what? The Texans offense went and scored enough to where they could win a game when their defense gave up 37 points. The 49ers haven't been doing that on offense either. So it's not just defensive play calling that's hurting the 49ers for the last 3 weeks. Maybe it's beneficial, but I just feel like that's not the problem. What do you think? Do you think it would benefit for the 49ers, be a benefit for the 49ers for Steve Wilks to leave the booth and call plays from the sideline?
Everybody has a preference. That was not even something I've ever even thought about. Like even all my years of playing football, I've kind of dealt with both, but never thought, oh man, I need to have my defensive coordinator right there on the sideline. A lot of times too, typically you're talking to your position coach. Like they're the ones that usually come over. they'll talk to you about, making some adjustments or something. Maybe the DC says something to them. Well, that's still being relayed even when you're in the booth. I'm pretty sure Steve Wilks calls down, hey, or actually they have headsets on. Hey, tell Croc, stop doing blah, blah, blah. Look at this, see this, and this is what we're going to try to do. Like, the information is being relayed. I don't know if it makes a difference for some guys that need to look a coach in the eyes, but it's just a little weird to me that this has been an issue. Now, we did see, I was watching the game, and they talked about how the office coordinator went from the booth to the field. I think the Steelers maybe. Was it the
Matt
Steelers?
Canada. The Steelers. Yep, that was it. And they won.
Yeah, but their offense kind of still looked the same. Stinky. I don't think they won because he went down onto the field. So everybody has a preference. I think 49er fans are used to seeing Robert Saleh on the sideline, D'Amico Ryans on the sideline. You get to kind of see that, their attitude, their swagger, just getting pumped up with their players. And maybe the 49er players are used to that. And then with Wilks, maybe he's just not like that. Because even when you watch him, I saw a good play happen and he didn't smile or didn't anything. So maybe just the way he is maybe doesn't quite vibe, but I don't think that's going to change with him going from the booth to the sideline.
I will say he called plays from the booth last year for the Carolina Panthers, right? And then he became interim head coach, and he went down to the sideline. And what they do? They won whatever 5 out of 6 or something like that. They had a nice stretch at the end of the year where they won some games. I do think there's got to be some conversations that can be had that could be helpful. That's the one thing I think could absolutely. I mean, he's not a rah guy. Maybe there's a face-to-face he needs to have with somebody. Maybe that'll help their tackling if he's yelling at guys because they're missing tackles and he's not, he's in the booth and he can't yell in someone's face. But I think just conversations. Fred walks off the field and says, "Hey, I'm seeing this." That's not a conversation he can have from the booth, and he might be able to get some of those things relayed back and forth. But it's not like a quick face-to-face. Kyle's calling plays now on offense. And Fred Warner, 54, walks up to you. He's the leader of the defense, and he's like, "Hey, I'm seeing this. This is happening." I think that could be somewhat helpful. So, yeah. But I don't think he's ever going to be a rah guy. That's not Steve Wilks' MO.
I seen the chat. Kittle me this. He says Wilks equals Fangio 2.0. Fangio was in the booth. Didn't matter that he wasn't on the field with crazy Alden Smith and Justin Smith and Navarre Bowman, Patrick Willis. It did not matter. The information got relayed. Matter of fact, can't you talk to the person in the helmet with the green dot? So he's able to communicate. Now you can't communicate back. He's able to communicate with even just through that. Yeah.
And then you can pick up the phone on the sideline or whatever. They do have communication to be able to have those conversations. But maybe he just needs some, because you remember the famous Mike Nolan when he was defensive coordinator for the Ravens, and Mike Singletary was linebackers coach, and he told Singletary from the booth. He talked to Singletary on the field. He said, "Hey, when Ray Lewis comes off the field, I want you to chew his ass out a little bit." And so he had somebody to be his heavy for him, right? Someone to maybe Wilks needs that guy on the sideline. That's maybe not him. It's somebody else that can talk to guys in a certain way. Maybe that's something that would be helpful. I don't know. And maybe he's the one that needs to do that. 49ers don't have that guy. He's not making tackles out there, Croc. He's calling the plays. They got to figure something out, though. They do. Just deep into the season to kind of not have answers, and it's just hearing Kyle be unsure about his own coaches. That is a little bit worrisome. And you got to be able to put 17 points on offense.
I've seen some all 22 stuff. I've seen some stuff get sent to me, and asking "Hey man, who's wrong? Who's playing this wrong?" One thing I'll never do is I don't like to guess when it comes to scheme because I don't know what the players are told or how they were told to play it. But I will say the plays that were sent to me, it just looked like it was a better offensive play call than the defensive call. Whatever the offense was thinking ahead of time, it almost seemed like he knew what the 49ers defense was going to play. So then he called something to where it would be difficult for them to defend. Now that's what Kyle Shanahan does, right? Kyle Shanahan, he calls plays that put guys in a tight spot or puts a guy in a bind, right? That's his superpower. But I think we forget that he's not the only good play caller in the league. He sets guys up a certain way, and we're so used to seeing that. But I think there are other really good coordinators around the league. And if you watched how Joe Burrow and the Bengals executed tonight, it's like, well, it's not just the 49ers defense. Like, they executed. He was money. He was really good. I mean, what did Joe Burrow throw for tonight? 360-something, whatever it was, right? Like, so it was not like, oh, I'm just good against the 49ers. It's like, no, I'm hitting my stride right now, and I'm getting back to being that top 2, top 3 quarterback that he was just a year ago, right? He just started this season hurt. So it could be some of that where maybe Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow just good. The tough thing is you don't get a break because you play Trevor Lawrence. He's playing good football right now too.
Yeah, you're going to play a lot of good quarterbacks, especially when you get into the playoffs. Pharrell's question, I don't know if you heard Richard Sherman's comments on this. I did not, Croc. Pharrell says, do you think Steve Wilks will mirror last year's defensive scheme or do what Richard Sherman says he's playing man on first and second downs on his podcast?
Yeah, I'd have to look and see what they're doing. Now, typically, you play more zone, especially on early downs, run downs, because now you have more eyes on the ball, right? Like more eyes in the backfield. When I'm playing zone, I can read my keys, and through my keys, I can see what's going on kind of in the backfield, even if it's just my peripheral vision. So if it's a run play, I can kind of see it. And now we can all fly to the ball, as opposed to man, where maybe I'm pressed up, my eyes are on my guy, and now you don't have as many eyeballs in the backfield to help stop the run. So if there is an issue on early downs playing more man, I would say it would be more of that as opposed to being able to defend the pass.
Teams are throwing the ball on early downs more than they ever did too. So it's seeing more big nickel, people trying to stop the run of nickels. They know they got to defend the pass as well. Womack might be back in action, might be activated. Do you think Womack goes outside, Demo in the slot? Roberto wants to know.
That's what they tried in the preseason. Womack was playing on the outside, but he also got kind of burnt down the sideline in the Raider game. They took him up top. He's giving up for a guy that's wrong corner, runs in the 4.3s. He's been taken up top quite a few times. So it could be just he's not out there enough, like he's not as comfortable. But it's not like it's something that I'm excited to see. I would be more excited just to see kind of where he's at in his development, as opposed to thinking this is the answer. Like, he still has to show me that.
Yeah, excited is not the word. I would be interested. I'd be very interested to see what it looked like, though, and see if there's more changes to come. And after the bye week is the time. Like, and that's one thing we haven't really talked about. There might be some changes. Like, we might show up Sunday and be like, oh, so-and-so's first team blank that we didn't expect, right guard or something. Like, oh, okay, that's happening. And you might see that at corner. You might see that at a few positions. Last one here. This one from Adrian says, does the number 1 seed seem unlikely? Eagles going through the ringer soon also. I would say it does seem unlikely. That game against the Eagles, obviously huge because, it's a double whammy there, but you've already got to make up 2 games on the Eagles and win a tiebreaker to get the 1 seed over them. So that 2-game lead is going to be tough. And so that would mean you'd have to play really well, and the Niners wouldn't be able to lose a lot of games and count on the Eagles losing more than 2 games. That would be difficult. But beating the Eagles would be a huge part of that, because then you got the head-to-head tiebreaker and you're 1 game closer there. Now you're only 1 game behind.
Well, you look at the next 4 games. They have Kansas City at Arrowhead. Then they play Buffalo. Then they play the 49ers. Then they play Dallas Cowboys. And then they play in Seattle, which I think makes a difference for the Seahawks. Like, Geno just plays better there at their house. So if there is an opportunity or a window to kind of catch them, it would be that window. And obviously a big game with the 49ers, like having to win that game. So there's a chance. Like, do you just think they just steamroll through that entire stretch? Like, I don't. I can see them losing 2 games.
Yeah, I don't think so. But then that would mean the 49ers would still have to be perfect just to match them.
True.
At that spot, because they're 2 games behind right now. And it's going to be difficult for the 49ers because they have to stay on point and they have to stay up for 3 games in a row. You can't have that letdown game in between, and you got a Thursday nighter on the road, which is many times Seattle's a tough place to play. It's in their house. That's like when you look at the schedule, you take the players off the field. Just say, okay, at Seattle, Thursday night, short week. that is a scheduled loss in a lot of cases. So that's a tough game. And then you follow that up with the Philadelphia game, and then you go back and play Seattle again. So they're going to have to be on it, man. And so whatever it was that's ailed the team the last few weeks, they have to have that figured out coming out of the bye. It gets tough.
At least you have a lot of time to prepare for that Eagles team after the Thursday night game. So I think you just got to look at it like, look, we're going to go all in, go all in on the Seahawks game Thursday night. Boom, get that dub. Now we have 10 days to prepare for Philly. Get rested up, well rested, travel, like everything is good. You're and go win that game.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate all the folks jumping in with the live chat here. It's late on a Sunday night. Love all you that are driving to work, listening to us as everydayers out there here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Really appreciate you guys. And of course, we'll be back every single day this week, trying to get David Harrison of Locked On Washington Commanders podcast to give us his insider scouting report on the newest 49er, Chase Young. And I was kind of disappointed, Croc, when I realized I already knew it was a bye week, but then the game started and I was like, man, I want to see Chase Young in a 49ers uniform. I want to see what that looks like, man. I'm pumped for that. So
do we know what number he is?
I still don't know. I do not know what number he is, but we're going to find out because they'll hit the practice field on Tuesday, right? Or do they come back Monday to practice after a bye? Because usually Mondays are off.
They might practice Monday.
Okay, well, we'll find out soon enough what that's going to look like. So stay tuned here every day. Locked On 49ers, Brian Peacock, Eric Crocker. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Talk to you next time right here, Locked On 49ers.